This
already, and I
conference
know
will
this will
now be
probably.
recorded.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. Thanks for being here. I know that we're trying to squeeze this in before the holiday, and it looks like we do not have a lot of local businesses that are participating. But I think Russ is going to host. But let's go through at least some of the information that we have, and we'll put this up on our YouTube channel so people can watch it. And then we certainly will ask around after the holiday to see if something similar to this, or maybe a different form or format, might work for some of the businesses. And again, as we talked about earlier, um, I think the environment here for what's coming available and programs that are moving along is going to continue to change. That landscape is going to continue to look different. So we've had good success with these type of things in the past, tough time of year, but happy that at least we're trying. So with that, the goal is to provide great resources and great resource people for some of the businesses in town. So that's the goal for today. And again, we'll be placing this on YouTube. I'm going to kind of get out of the way, and Russ is going to host the meeting, or kind of quarterback the meeting this morning. And then again, you can expect this to get up on YouTube probably maybe today, if not on Monday, but you can expect that as well. So if you have any comments afterwards, please let Russ or I know, and so that we can modify, and we'll kind of talk around with most of you again too to see if there's something more that we can do or additional information we can provide. So Russ, with that, I'm going to get out of the way. Thanks for being here, everyone. And if I don't see you at the end, please have a great holiday season. Be safe out there. Take care of yourself, and love the ones you love.
Thanks, Todd. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to have everybody assembled. I think the first time we tried a meeting of this type was in March of 2020. So we were pretty regular there for a while until things kind of became, I wouldn't say routine, but a routine was established maybe. But again, thank you very much. We wanted to pull things together, get some information, year-end information about some of the business assistance programs or other matters that may be important to the St. Peter business community. And to that end, we've invited our colleagues and our friends and our partners from Greater Mankato Growth. Jessica here, Beyer, is the executive director, president of that organization, and then she's joined by Ryan Vesey and Andy Wilkie. Those longtime viewers remember when it was John Considine III and Patrick Baker. But those gentlemen have both moved on to other opportunities, and as they are want to do, Greater Mankato Growth was able to fill those positions and bring some additional folks on board. So I'm going to get out of the way here. The order we're going to go here is we're going to have Greater Mankato Growth speak a little bit, then Ed's going to do a little bit of a presentation, and then I'll wrap things up, and we'll end up with a question and answer session. So Ryan, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am. So I wanted to start. There are two remaining COVID-19 relief programs that are pretty accessible to businesses. The first is Region 9 Development Commission has a CARES Act revolving loan fund, and I'm dropping the link into the chat now. That loan fund is up to $100,000. It's 0% interest for 2 years, and then it's 2% interest after that. As for how much you can get for your particular business, what that calculation is, how long the loan term is going to be, those are all things that they work out individually with any business that reaches out to them. So they'd want you to contact them directly to discuss some of those. The other program, and this one is time sensitive, if you're looking at getting an economic injury disaster loan through the SBA, the deadline for that to apply is December 31st. So those loans are up to $2 million. It's a 3.75% interest rate for a for-profit business and a 2.75% interest rate for a nonprofit business. They are 30-year loans with payment deferred for the first 2 years. The way they calculate what you should be receiving is they look at your 2019 gross revenue, and they take that, subtract the cost of goods sold, and then they multiply that by 2. Again, up to $2 million. If you're getting more than $25,000, you need to put up collateral. And if you are getting more than $200,000, you need to put up a personal guarantee. But again, if you want to get the economic injury disaster loan, you do need to apply by December 31st.
Lost my microphone there. Thank you, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan? If not, we'll turn things over to Andy. Welcome, Andy.
Great. Thank you. For those that don't know me, my name is Andy Wilkie. I am the Director of Business Development and Public Affairs. So today I'm going to talk more on the public affairs side. And there's a couple of things that we've been watching closely. First is the Osha Emergency Temporary Standard, RUS. It's shorthand for ETS. This is a rule that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration out of the Biden administration submitted that would require employers with 100 or more employees to either require vaccination, COVID-19 vaccinations, or do weekly testing. I've dropped a link in the chat to a blog post that we did back in November that kind of runs through some of the details about that. Minnesota has a state plan, so each state can sort of take the federal standards and then do their own state version. Minnesota has said that they will adopt the standards by reference, which is just a quicker way to adopt them to be no more restrictive than what the federal OSHA guidelines have been. All this has been put on hold. The Federal Court of Appeals out of the 6th District has put a pause on this. They issued an injunction, and it's prohibiting OSHA from enforcing this rule. So right now, we're in a holding pattern. So there's no requirements necessarily of any employer at this point. However, you should be just aware of it and consider what you would do if it does go into effect. Would you require vaccination of your employers or your employees, or would you implement a weekly testing program? There are some details about a weekly testing program that are sort of to be determined. The state of Minnesota has a law that requires any medical testing required for employment must be paid for by the employer. There's sort of this thought out there that has not necessarily been confirmed that employers must bear the burden of this weekly testing. We have not gotten guidance out of the state about that, but a lot of employers are sort of expecting that they will have to bear that burden if they do choose a testing option. So again, this is on hold at this point. It only applies to employers with 100 or more employees, and it's 100 or more employees as of November 6th. So there's been some employers out there that thought, well, gosh, I'll divide up my business, or I'll lay people off, or I'll do something really, really extreme or creative so I get under this 100 threshold. It's too late at this point. So there's also this thought out there. OSHA did not implement this rule for employers with less than 100 employees. They determined that employers who had at least 100 employees have the resources and capability of implementing such a program. However, they are studying and looking at how to implement such a rule for all employers, no matter what the employee count. They have not come out with anything yet. But I imagine that they're working on it, and we could see something in the new year about that. Again, all of this is on hold while the courts determine the legality of all of this rule. So I'll take a pause there, and because it's a lot of information. But does anybody have any questions on that before I move on?
Andy, I have a question.
Yes.
This is Carrie Johnson, by the way.
Hi, Carrie.
So I know that everything's on hold. I know the concern for some employers is that if the mandate is upheld, are there any penalties for not putting something in place by the deadline? I know that that's been on the minds of some employers. So what have you learned about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're learning more every day. So ultimately, within Minnesota, the state OSHA will be responsible for enforcement. At this point, they are floating out there that it could be fines of tens of thousands of dollars per occurrence, or it could be just sort of a one-time fine. So we don't know exactly how it's going to be. However, I will say this. Minnesota OSHA does not have an army of inspectors to go out from door to door, business to business, and sort of do inspections and whatnot. It will likely be complaint-based. So if an employer, an employee submits a complaint or something to Minnesota OSHA will then probably follow up afterwards. And then the employer will be required to provide documentation that they are following the rule. So I don't know there's going to be a terribly robust enforcement mechanism, but employers are going to be required to keep records. And if they cannot produce those records, then they're going to get in a sticky situation. Well, good question. Any other questions on the OSHA Emergency Temporary Standard? All right. If you are so inclined, I dropped another link in the chat. We are hosting a webinar with one of our law firms, Gisselson Hunter, next Tuesday, the 21st at 10:30 a.m. It's free, and it talks about where we're at with the Emergency Temporary Standard and what employers should be doing. So it's always nice to get some free advice from attorneys. I love it. So that's that. Moving on, the other big thing that we're talking about when it comes to public affairs is locally as a state of Minnesota is the legislative session that is coming up here that starts on January 31st of 2022. This is the second year of a 2-year biennium. It is typically a bonding year where they'll pass capital projects, and so they'll be looking at that. However, this year there's some interesting dynamics. One is we have a very large state surplus. $7.7 billion with a B. So there is a lot of surplus money that the state has to determine what they want to do with it. This does not include the $1 billion that the legislature set aside earlier this year that they were going to decide how to spend that money. So if you're adding that up, we have close to $9 billion of cash to determine what we want to spend that on. One issue that employers should be aware of is unemployment insurance. So during the pandemic, when a lot of folks lost their jobs, the state was very generous and rightfully so to get out unemployment benefits to as many people as quickly as possible. And the state burned through about $10 billion of unemployment benefits. What that did is it caused us to go into a deficit in our unemployment trust fund. We have a deficit of about $1.1 billion. And right now, the mechanism to fill that trust fund is to increase payroll taxes on employers. That means employers could be looking at up to a 15% increase of their payroll taxes starting on the first of the year. The legislature is going to be very hotly debating this. The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, this is their #1 priority to make sure that the state legislature uses some of the surplus money and then the extra $1 billion they set aside as well to fill this trust fund and to hopefully not allow this 15% increase to occur for employers. So unemployment insurance, $1 billion deficit, and it's something that we're going to be watching very closely as well. Questions on the unemployment insurance trust fund? Great. The other thing that folks should know is the experience rating. So if you are an employer and you go through more employees that end up utilizing or consuming this unemployment insurance more frequently, it impacts your so-called experience rating. That experience rating has been frozen for the last year and a half. That will be coming back on the first of the year. So employers who go through and utilize that trust fund more frequently will start to see that impact their unemployment premium. So, I talked a little bit earlier about bonding projects. Greater Mankato Growth, we support all of the regional bonding projects in the Mankato region. So for us, that includes Minnesota State University Mankato and their Armstrong Hall, City Mankato, their water project, Skyline and their water tower, and North Mankato and their Caswell Park. We're also aware of and will definitely speak kindly of some other projects in the region, which includes the State Hospital in St. Peter. That's something that we're aware of, and we'll make sure that our local legislators are aware of that, and we know how important that facility is for not only St. Peter, but for the region. And then lastly, when it comes to public affairs is the election, I said. So we have redistricting. This is going to be a discussion at the legislature. They have a February deadline to come up with some maps, and nobody, and I mean nobody, expects them to adopt them on their own. And so it'll flip to the courts to decide the maps. And so we expect that to happen pretty early on within the legislative session. And then we'll have new maps and new districts for everyone to run for re-election on, and we'll see how that all plays out for the November election. So that's a lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. But if anybody has any further questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Anything else for Andy?
Thanks, Russ. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, and thank you, Ryan. You know, your competency and the knowledge that you can accumulate and the way that you can express that to the people, it should be commended. So thanks again. One of our strong partners with Greater Mankato Growth and our RETA partnership, which includes North Mankato, Mankato, Eagle Lake, Lake Crystal, Nicola County, and Blue Earth County, and then of course the city of St. Peter. So it's a great organization, and I think it speaks very well of our region that we're able to work that closely, because there's many places that don't, and it seems to be the trend is the regionalism. So thanks, gentlemen. Thanks, Jessica, for making your staff available to us. At this time, I'm going to turn things over to Ed Lee from the St. Peter Area Chamber of Commerce. You got the floor, Ed.
Hey, thanks, Russ, and thanks for everyone for coming today. What a great group. Man, such a great group that I think we should reconvene for happy hour at 5 o'clock. It's great to see so many business representatives. Well, I say so many. You always want more attendance at everything in life. This would be one of them. We tried to get the word out. Great to see Main Street here, Sarah and Joey. And I think everybody in this window is pulling for business, is trying to help business. We want to acknowledge that we're still in the middle of a pandemic, of course, and there's uncertainty out there. People are looking around and saying, look at all the spending that's going on. Seeing the national stories, driving by stores and restaurants in St. Peter, Minnesota, Mankato, Minnesota, and saying there's so many dollars going into the coffers of local businesses. But we know January will be a different situation, and like I say, the pandemic is out there, and certainties out there, and all kinds of variants, and well, the big variant, of course. It's been the mission of the St. Peter Chamber since 1918, really, and more focused during the pandemic, of course, to guide members to dollars, to find money for, and guide consumers to businesses, you know, our members and the whole business community. So we want to always throw it out there. Call us anytime at the chamber. We're 934-3400 or Ed Lee at stpeterchamber.com. The opportunities, SBA, other things that Andy and Ryan talked about. Boy, oh boy. Thanks so much, Andy, for your explanation of the 1.1 billion unemployment situation. That's certainly a priority for the state chamber and local chambers also. We're trying to contact our legislators. We encourage businesses to do the same thing. Boy, businesses have a maybe stronger voice than they know once you start following legislators and seeing the way they respond, you really get the feel that they're at least listening, you know. So we're on speed dial with bankers, accountants, even attorneys around town who can really help answer the questions too. We can be a liaison between the two, do a lot of research, and help answer questions of businesses. So I think that's all I got. Again, let's reconvene for happy hour. Russ, take it away. Take it back.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you very much. Thank you for your advocacy on behalf of the business community during these times, and the leadership that you've proven just down the block. So thanks, Ed. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the city's programs that they had put together. Way back in March of 2020, we put together the original COVID-19 microloan program. We were able to distribute $491,000 in loans to businesses, and then as we were able to receive federal funding via the state, we were able then to provide for the forgiveness of the $491,000. Still recognizing that there perhaps was a need, the city council at the time then stepped up and reauthorized the program for a second round. And so we did the second round. There was a little bit of a tweak, and that was if you had a hospitality business, a bar, a restaurant, or such, you were able to receive up to a $10,000 0% loan. But then the hospitality businesses also received a grant equal to 65% of the loan. So if they received the full $10,000 loan, the bar or restaurant received a $6,500 grant that does not need to be repaid. The other businesses, I would say in the general retail category, they were able to provide for a 0% loan up to a maximum of $10,000. Between the two programs then, with the hospitality, we did $235,677 in loans, and then that had the $153,190 in grants that were accompanied those. And then the general business community in the second round, there were a total of $309,491. So in the second round in 2021, we did a total of $545,000. As the council has explored the opportunities that are provided with various funding sources that they had access to, the council has decided that the loans will be repaid at 0% beginning at the $100 a month, beginning January 1, as per the executed promissory notes. So if you received a loan in 2021, some of them were made in December of 2020, but if you received a loan in the second round, we'll say, you should expect in the very near future that you will receive correspondence from the city asking you to get us information on bank accounts, so that we can establish those as a transaction at the bank without having to exchange checks every month. So we do an automatic withdrawal, which has been our policy on our other loan programs. So I want to say it's been an honor to help. I believe we did make a difference. Going forward, again, we will put out some letters and ask for the contact and bank information so that we can set those up at the 0%, $100 a month, as per the promissory notes. So any questions on the COVID-19 funding that the city was able to provide?
Russ, is that optional, the automatic withdrawal, or?
I would say no, Ed. That's been our policy, is how we've set up all our loans. People were notified when they received the loan that they'd be getting correspondence asking for automatic withdrawal information. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Other questions?
Can it be paid in one lump sum?
You could repay it all in one lump sum. Yes, sir. There's no penalty for prepayment of your 0% loan. But certainly, I think your financial advisor would say if you've got interest-bearing accounts, you may want to extinguish those first and then move on to your 0%. So anything else, Ed?
Great answers. Thanks, Russ.
Anyone else have anything, questions? If you have, you can either wave, or I think we got a small enough crowd, you can just turn on your microphone and chime in. I don't hear anything. So I want to wrap things up. I want to thank you all. I see Mayor-elect Noel and again, Councilperson Carrie Johnson have joined us. So if you have questions, comments, I'm sure that they'd be more than happy to hear from you. Otherwise, you can reach out to me or City Administrator Prafke at City Hall. Cindy will end the recording here in just a little bit, and then we will, as City Administrator Prafke said, we'll have this posted on the city's Facebook page in due time, which hopefully I think can be accomplished perhaps as early as this afternoon. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful morning. Have a wonderful holiday season. Stay safe, stay well, travel safe, and hopefully we'll see you in the very near future. So thank you very much. Have a great morning.
Thanks, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.